All right, hey everybody. I'm going to continue the book Communist Methods or Communist Propaganda Methods, book from 1960. And we're going to continue on chapter 1. All right, here we go. Party schooling consists of studying the material and documents of the 19th CPSU Congress and the brilliant work of Stalin published shortly before the Congress. The 19th Congress resolved to be guided by the fundamental principles of Stalin's economic problems of socialism in the USSR, which thus became the basis of party schooling in Czechoslovakia. During the 19th CPSU Congress, the last Stalinist Congress, Stalin himself voiced a significant admission. In view of the poor ideological condition of communist parties abroad, he felt he needed a new theoretical work to bring Marxism up to date. His economic problems of socialism was to serve as a basic study for a whole series of theoretical writings which would bring communist ideology up to date. Stalin was also aware, sorry if I just read that twice. Aware of the low ideological consciousness prevailing among youth in the USSR and within the whole Soviet orbit. As far as the older generation of communists outside the Soviet Union were concerned, Stalin felt strongly that they, too, needed to understand Marxism more adequately. What is needed, therefore, is a textbook which might serve as a reference book for the revolutionary youth, not only at home but also abroad, in view of the inadequate level of Marxist development of the majority of the communist parties abroad. Such a textbook might be of great use to communists abroad and not merely for the younger communist generation. The 19th CPSU Congress made it relatively easy for the regime in Czechoslovakia to plan the ideological battle. The lines were drawn in sharp and clear Stalinist terms. Assessing the Congress, the President of Czechoslovakia declared, "The 19th Congress had a tremendous impact on the development of our country. The Congress strengthened us very much in our effort to build socialism. We were also strengthened in our confidence in the victory of the peaceful forces over the American warmongers." Thus, an intensification of the ideological fight against Westernism and the cosmopolitanism in Czechoslovakia came on the heels of the 19th CPSU Congress. The National Conference of the CPCS of December 1952 outlined the scope of the ideological struggle to be followed by the propaganda machine in accordance with the spirit of the 19th Congress. The offensive against Western ideologies, against Titoism, and against Zionism gained momentum. In 1954, the impact of the 19th Congress was still felt. Zdeněk Ferlinger, a member of the CPCS Politburo, declared at the 10th CPCS Congress held in Prague in June 1954 that the glorious 19th CPSU Congress became for us also a significant milestone in all our pioneering efforts. In the absence of new ideological directives from Moscow, the Czechoslovak Communist Party leaders were still holding firmly to the spirit of the 19th Congress. The 10th 1954 CPCS Congress was predominantly Stalinist, although lip service was paid to the principle of collective leadership. Great homage was accorded Stalin. At the same time, the cult of personality was condemned, either in the abstract or else directly on the politically less crucial levels of public life, such as the arts. Nikita Khrushchev, who was the delegate for the CPSU at the 10th Congress of the CPCS, did not spoil the conservative Stalinist spirit of the Congress. He declared that the successes of the CPSU were the result of faithfulness to the invincible teachings of Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Stalin. Nevertheless, he stressed the necessity of applying those teachings in such a creative way to the historical conditions in each country. Khrushchev's hints at the possibility of looking for different roads to socialism were evident, even if they were not spelled out. In contradistinction to lower party organizations, which were prone to welcome any liberalizing trend, the Czech communist leaders preferred to tread on safe and charted ground. Mr. Ferlinger even assailed the concept of a different road to socialism as a bourgeois concept which aimed at weakening the friendship of the Czechoslovak people with the Soviet Union. He appeared on the whole to be more of a Muscovite than a Khrushchev himself. The Czechoslovakian regime was ideologically undisturbed in its Stalinist spirit, save for some slightly lessening of control in the realm of art. There were no concessions which would point to a new course. The ideological re-evaluation going on in Moscow prior to the 1956 20th Congress did not confuse the Czechoslovak party leaders in their task of Stalinist Sovietization of the propaganda activities. As there was no official change enunciated from Moscow until the 20th Congress, the CPCS disposed of the ideological ferment existing in Moscow by passing it off as a fight against the personality cult, the new Soviet cliché in parentheses. The liberalizing quote-unquote approach of Malenkov during the period 1953 to 1955, for which the West coined the phrase New Look, was popularly described by the Czechs as Stalinkovism, indicating a middle-of-the-road approach between dogmatic Stalinism and the more relaxed Malenkov policies. Stalin's successors moved carefully in the reprisal of Stalinism in order not to disrupt the continuity of power and ideology. It was not prudent to admit the reality of a new situation in terms of ideology. It was not safe in Moscow, and even less safe in Czechoslovakia, for the latter was the formative years of Sovietization and had not passed the first decade of communist indoctrination. The ideological vacillations of Moscow in the era of Malenkov's interregnum did not, at least outwardly, confuse the CPCS leaders. They were always able to fall back on the 1952 19th CPSU Congress, when Malenkov had advertised the party to draw on the historical experience of the party. The Czech leaders believed this to be the safest course to follow. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there for now. My camera's about to die. So next time I'll make sure it's charged up. But the info is a little convoluted, I suppose. It's just sort of talking about different factions of the Communist Party in Czechoslovakia. So there's a lot of information. It's not really easy to understand, especially if you're not like a freaking genius, because this is a different time. This is what, 70 years ago, but we're going to compare it to present day the best we can as we go, and as more information is revealed out of this book, which I think is going to be really valuable, really useful in present day, as the New World Order pushes this communist agenda on us in the West. Okay, everybody, before this dies, I'm going to turn it off.